Greetings everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be making some custom fiberglass side panels for this 1975 XL125 that I swapped a TRX 200 SX engine into, and this is going to be the finishing touch. So we're going to go through the whole process of making the molds, laying the fiberglass down, doing all the body work, and making this thing look factory fresh here once we get the paint on it. So stick around, this is going to be a fun one. Let's kind of earball some things here. I'll cut this like this. Yeah, I did this on my XL100 Frankenbike a couple years ago. Turned out really, really sharp. Yeah. We'll try to make this look just as nice. Okay, so I want to follow the line from the seat to the tank. Let's just leave a little extra for now. Let's cut that out. I'm thinking, let's try to mimic that body line, kind of like that. Make this body line kind of like that. There, that's the shape I want. That's gonna look pretty darn sharp. Yeah, take us over to foam, cut a chunk of foam out, and then we'll start shaping it to fit in here. So here's the foam I'm gonna be using to make the mold. It's called dry foam. You should be able to get it at any hobby store. I think they got it at Walmart, but it's kind of in smaller sheets. Yeah, I got this from Hobby Lobby. It's kind of a mess when you're working with it, so probably want to wear a dust mask, and definitely, if all possible, maybe cut it and sand it outside, but we'll get to that later. First thing I want to do is take my cardboard template, and we'll take and mark it out on the foam. And to the other side, fit that in there. Just like that. Yep, that'll fit just fine. So now I kind of want to mimic probably the curve on the bottom of this tank. Round everything off here, 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 and here to match that. A little bit of a round off there. So I'll use a little 80 grit sandpaper, and I'll just start sanding away. Oh yeah, that's gonna look great. Yeah, I don't want this to be totally flat too, so I'm just going to sand a little bit of a dome into this. Round things off a little bit. Get a little shape. That looks nice. Nice, nice, nice. Yeah. That is great. That follows seat line perfectly. That follows that body line perfectly. That follows that body line. Now when you're making these molds, you want to make them about 3/16 of an inch smaller in all directions, because we're going to have to cover this with silicone and then one layer of fiberglass on that. And by the time that gets built up, everything should be the perfect shape. So I'll probably sand a little bit around the edges here to make this thing a little bit smaller than it needs to be. Yeah, but after that, we're gonna be ready to start laying down some fiberglass, or I guess silicone first. Yeah, that is looking fantastic. Sand a little bit more off here. Round off our edges. We'll have both sides done. Now that we have our mold made out of foam, next up, I'm going to cover it with some 100% silicone. and that'll act as a release agent for the fiberglass resin. So, and this is why I made the mold a little bit smaller than I need, because this will add a little bit of thickness to it. And then once I get the fiberglass mat on there, that'll add more thickness to it and all that jazz. So by the time you do all the Bondo and body work, yeah. So let's just grab our gloves and smooth this out over the foam. Don't want to leave it too thick. Try to make it as thin as you can without having the little fuzzies of foam start to stick through. And that should be fine. Just like that. So make sure you get silicone over the entirety of the foam, or else your resin is definitely going to not want to pop off of this. They probably make some kind of release agent for this. I should probably look into doing something like that, but I've always done it this way. Works fine. It's cheap. Cock-a-doodle-doodle yourself, rooster. Crime sakes. Okay, so the silicone is dried up on the molds. I put some screws in here to kind of hold this off the cardboard so they don't stick to the cardboard when I'm laying my resin down. So my supplies: fiberglass resin, fiberglass hardener, and fiberglass mat. So we'll chop the mat up and lay the resin and mat down on here. Probably 2 layers. Let that set up semi-hard, and at that point I will spread some Bondoglass over the top of it, and then be ready for body work. Now this is a little itchy, but it's pretty simple to do. Oh, it's been sitting there a while. Alright, this stuff is pretty simple to do. And you can find this stuff at Walmart, O'Reilly's, Advanced Auto, any place like that. Pour enough resin in there for 1 round. And about that much. I'll take our hardener, throw that in there. Stir that up really good and lay down some mat. That's probably a little bit too much hardener. I'm going to have to work fast. Whew. Make sure you do this in a ventilated area or outside. Stinky stuff. First thing you want to do, take a paintbrush and cover up your mold completely with some resin. At this point, yeah, you'll definitely want to do this outside or in a ventilated area. Polyester resin's pretty funky stuff. Didn't really mean to do that one quite yet. Now we'll start laying down our mat. Lay the mat down, take some resin, and just kind of jam it into the mold. That's all wet. It'll conform to that really nicely. And just keep jamming it in so you get all the air bubbles out. And keep on working with it. We'll overlap about 50%. So then at the end there's probably about 2 layers of fiberglass on there. That'll be plenty fine for something non-structural like this. Okay, so we got our first layer of mat on here, and as this is setting up, I'm just going to keep pushing along the edge here to make sure that the fiberglass is kind of just falling 90 degrees down from the mold until it's all set up, and we'll have a pretty good start on this. All right, so our first layer of fiberglass is set up. Next step, I'm gonna take a cutoff wheel and grind the excess off. Leave probably about a 3/4 of an inch off the flange. At that point, you figure out how I want to make the mounts like I did for this bike. Just that simple. Okay, we got our rough trim done. Now these molds should pop right out. They should pop right out. There. And if I ever want to build another one of these, I'll save these and I can reuse them. There we go. That's a good start. Okay, let's see how these are going to look on here. I'll have to clearance the air box a little bit right there and there, but beyond that, this is going to work out great. Everything's set up pretty nicely. Now I'm going to take the cutoff wheel and I'm going to scratch up the resin really good. Give it some teeth for the Bondoglass to stick onto. And then put a bunch of that over the top of it and start sanding. Yeah, let's take this outside. This is no good. Well, now it's time for a little fiberglass filler. Ooh, that's been sitting all winter there. All the resin is floated to the top, so let's stir that up. Now the fun part, we gotta sand everything down. We'll start with some pretty aggressive 40 grit paper and get the things to shape. And then we'll smooth everything out with just some regular Bondo. We should be ready for primer eventually. This is gonna get itchy. Okay, everything's sanded down. A couple low spots here and there, but I can fill the ones in the center in with normal Bondo. But some low stuff up here, I'll have to add some more fiberglass in. But the main issue I have now after I sand, this is awfully thin since I only have one layer of fiberglass in there. So I'm going to put some of the filler right along the edge here on the inside, just to strengthen that up. To where it's about 1/8 inch thick. That'll be perfect. Just like that. We'll let that dry up, sand that smooth, and that should be ready for just normal Bondo. A skim coat over the top of this, sanding, and then primer. Okay, everything is sanded up. Nice and strong along the edges. Yeah. Let's see how she's gonna fit. Lovely. Okay, so right now you can kind of see burn through the fiberglass here. You can see some air bubbles here and there. I'm going to mix up a skim coat of regular old Bondo, put that over there, sand that down, and see how she looks after that. Okay, just got some regular old Walmart Bondo here. A little more than that. Now for the skim coat, I'm going to throw a little tiny bit of fiberglass resin in there to thin it out a little bit. Not much. That's good. Okay, so with that, we'll need the cream hardener and the liquid hardener. Cream for the putty, and the liquid hardener for the resin. Okay, so I'm making my own lightweight filler here by adding the fiberglass resin to the Bondo. All of our air bubbles should be filled up. Nice and smooth up top. Well, things are looking good. Everything still fits right. Yeah, that's gonna be great. So now, I'm gonna sand everything with probably 200 grit right now. At that point, see how she looks. I might need to put a little bit of Bondo here and there if there's any more air bubbles, but the polyester filler primer should cover those up. But let's just sand her and see how it looks. Let's get this out of here. Yeah, that looks great. A little low spot there, but I think that'll fill in with primer. Yeah, I think this one's ready for primer. Lovely. Okay, now it's primer time. This is epoxy, not epoxy. This is polyester filler primer. It's pretty much the same resin. Basically, it's liquid Bondo. So I will give it a couple thick coats of this and let that dry up. And at that point, I can block sand everything when it's all one color and kind of see how everything looks. Probably going to take about 2 rounds of that to get everything all smoothed out. Ooh, hope I have enough here. We'll mix that much up right now. Okay. Grab my little primer gun. I'm not going to record spraying this because it's like 90-mile-an-hour wind outside. And I don't want to get overspraying the camera. But, oh, you're probably wondering how I'm going to mount these to the bike. I'm not going to tell you. You got to keep watching. I'll show you here in a little bit how we're going to mount those to the bike. Boom, 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 foxtrot, uniform. Yeah, that looks pretty darn nice. Looks like most of my air bubbles are all filled in. We'll let this set up, give it a block sanding with some guide coat, see how she looks. Very optimistic about this. Now it's the next morning. Primer's all dried up. I'm gonna give everything a spray of this guide coat black. Just kind of dust it on there, kind of like so. And this will help me block sand everything really smooth. Okay, so we'll let this stuff dry up. Once that's dry, we'll start block sanding, and the goal is to get rid of all the black, but don't bust through the primer into the Bondo below. And then, yeah, if I can do that, block sand everything with 400 grit, it should be ready to rock and roll for paint. Let's move this back, yeah. All right, so it's got a foam block with some 400 grit paper on it. I'm just gonna start cross hatch sanding and see if I can get the guide coat off. And once that is all gone and I'm not busting down into the Bondo, we'll know everything is smooth, smooth, smooth. But if I do start busting down into the primer or the Bondo too far, I'll have to give it another shot of primer and do this again. Depends how perfect I want to make it. I want to make it pretty perfect though. Looking good so far. Yeah, a couple little air bubbles right down here. Those should sand out though. Yeah, you can kind of see high spots right here. This is when I was painting. I accidentally got the primer gun too close here, so there's a little bit of a high edge of primer, but I'll be able to sand that out. All right, this is looking pretty darn good. I've got the edges sanded off. And down here, I got a couple imperfections. This will be on the bottom, so no one's going to see it, but I'll kind of show you if you can see on camera. I busted through the primer into the putty below here, and there's a little bit of an air bubble right there, and I'm down into the fiberglass there. If this was like on a tank where somebody could see this, I would prime again and then sand again and not bust through the primer, because it's going to be a little bit of a halo right there. Usually you can buff stuff like that out in paint, but yeah, it's gonna be fine. I'm gonna leave that bad like that just so I can show you here how little imperfections like that look in paint. But we're gonna keep on sanding here, get this edge done, get this little nook done, and block this. Well, one side finished. All right, things are coming along. Got some sandy marks in there, a couple little air bubbles in there, low spot, low spot, low spot. But the primer's thick enough, I should be able to get everything out of there. I don't think I'm gonna need to reprime. We're getting there, guys and gal. All right, a little scratching with a little Scotch-Brite, and that side is done. It's beautiful. That's gonna look great. Now let's talk about how we're gonna mount those pretty fiberglass panels to the frame. So my thoughts are, cut a piece of sheet metal tab. I'm gonna drill a hole in it, stick this grommet in the hole, and now what I'm planning on doing is cutting down a bolt like this to something like this. So you can kind of see I ground a little bit of a nub on there that will slide over the grommet. Bam, just like that. I can use the threads to fine tune this in and out. And I'll take this T-nut and I'll just mold this with fiberglass into the panel, I think. Should work. Perfect. Okay, so now I got my little bracket drilled out, and this is going to weld onto the frame. Should be able to slide this grommet in here, something like that. So now this piece here, a little bolt that we cut and ground out that little nub, this should pop right in here. It's tight, but it's going to work. That's definitely going to hold that on. Yeah, so something like this. So the T-nut, I will fiberglass to the panel, and this I'll weld onto the frame. Just this in and out where I need it. That should work. Woo! So let's take a look at what we got going on here. One tab that I welded here, another tab that I welded here. Got this guy, he will pop in there. This guy will pop in the stock location. Let's put this one down here. This one will pop in the stock mounting location, kind of like that. Yeah, then I'll just move these in or out, and then I'm going to put some quick set epoxy on here. 1, 2, 3, and then I'll hold the plate or the side panel up to that until the epoxy sets up, and then I'll pull all 3 out, and then I'll cut some fiberglass and mold these T-nuts into the panel. It'll be good to go. Well, the epoxy didn't hold, but what I did, I sprayed some spray foam, dab, dab, dab on the inside of this, and stuck down my little tabs and put it on the bike until that's set up. So these are kind of just temporarily here now. So I'm going to trim away the foam really carefully. So after trimming out the excess spray foam, I cut a bunch of these little pieces of fiberglass. I'm going to mix up some resin and mold the tabs into the panel. That's way too much. Oh well. Okay. Let's fiberglass. Yep, go all the way around that a couple times, and then I'll just tie them all together with some larger pieces. There's no way that's coming off. Moving to the country, don't need me without pictures. Yeah, some folks on Facebook have been asking why I just don't 3D print these. What's the fun in that? Yeah, that is going to work out fantastically. Once that sets up, those will be in there permanently. We'll pop them on the bike, and hopefully those line up. We'll find out soon. Okay, so now the fiberglass is set up. We'll just kind of move these in or out so everything lines up nicely on here, and everything should pop right in. And once everything's lined up, I'll probably just put some red Loctite on there to hold the threads in place, or some resin, whatever. And I just realized I shouldn't have spent all that time perfecting everything block sanding, because I got resin and stuff all over the place. I'm gonna have to sand out and reprime, but oh well. Let's pop these on and see how everything's gonna fit. So that might be a little tight there, but I can just grind that bolt down. Bam. And now this side. Pop, pop, pop. Oh, It's so good. It's so good. All right, so what do you think? How do they turn out? I think they look fantastic. So let me know in the comments below, should I have used a 3D printer to do this? Or is this a lot more fun? This is a lot more fun. Can't wait to get this thing painted. So it looks like that guy over there. But that's gonna come at a future date because I don't have my paint ordered yet. And I have no idea what color I wanna paint this. Let me know in the comments below, what color should this be? Got a couple ideas, but haven't decided on one yet. Let me know what you think. Comments below. And yeah, that's really all the time I have for this week. So in the meantime, be sure to subscribe and click the like button on your way out. And if you want more Big Bikes and Brews content, click the video on the left or on the right. And I'll see you next time. All right, I hope you liked this episode of Bigfoot Bikes and Brews. Click on one of the videos here if you want to see some more. And please click on the Bigfoot button to subscribe to the channel and join in on the fun. See you next week.